What if you wanted to move to a new country, but were stopped, not by a lack of paperwork, but by the country itself? In a world where borders seem more open than ever, there are still places where immigration is not just difficult, but nearly impossible. Today, we'll take a deep dive into 10 countries where gaining entry as an immigrant is out of reach for most, from mysterious regimes to small island nations protecting their very existence. Stay with us as we unravel why these places shut their doors to outsiders. Country 1, North Korea. North Korea, known as the most isolated country on Earth. North Korea has perfected the art of exclusion. The nation's borders are heavily fortified, not just against outsiders, but even to prevent its own citizens from leaving. North Korea's authoritarian government keeps tight control on who enters or leaves the country, making it nearly impossible for regular immigrants to settle. Foreign diplomats and a handful of aid workers are allowed in. But for those dreaming of starting a new life here, that dream ends at the border. The government's motivation is clear: control. North Korea's regime carefully filters any outside influence that could destabilize the grip it holds over its citizens. Even the rare tourists who are allowed in are closely monitored, with their every move observed by government mentors. The state ensures that both locals and foreigners experience life in North Korea on its terms alone. For immigrants, there is no real path to integration. North Korea's rigid structure and isolationist stance mean that anyone not born within its borders is seen as an outsider, no matter the intent or qualifications they may bring. It's one of the last places on Earth where entry feels more like stepping into a locked cage than an opportunity. Country 2, Bhutan. Nestled high in the eastern Himalayas, Bhutan seems like a paradise for those seeking peace and simplicity. But it's also one of the most exclusive places in the world when it comes to immigration. Bhutan is fiercely protective of its culture, rooted in Buddhist principles and its unique measure of success, gross national happiness. The government has tightly restricted immigration, allowing only those with rare skills and deep connections to enter and stay. Tourists to Bhutan must pay a hefty fee, part of a deliberate strategy to preserve its environment and way of life. The government also uses this approach to limit foreign influences that could upset the delicate cultural balance Bhutan has worked to maintain. Immigration is allowed on a case-by-case basis, and you'll need to prove not only that you bring value, but that your presence won't disturb the harmony the Bhutanese hold dear. While Bhutan is a dream destination for many, the barriers to entry are steep. Even skilled professionals face a lengthy and difficult process, and unless you have something extraordinary to offer, it's unlikely Bhutan will open its doors to you. Country 3, Vatican City. The smallest country in the world, Vatican City is unique in nearly every aspect. Governed by the Catholic Church and serving as the spiritual heart of over 1 billion Catholics worldwide, Vatican City isn't exactly a place where you can simply apply for residency. With a population of only about 800 people, nearly all of whom are clergy, diplomats, or high-ranking church officials, it operates more as a religious enclave than a country in the traditional sense. Immigrants aren't barred by laws as much as by function. There's simply no need for an influx of residents. The Vatican serves a specific role, and that role doesn't involve making space for newcomers. Visitors flock to St. Peter's Basilica, but to call Vatican City home, you'll need to be a priest, cardinal, or someone in direct service to the church's mission. There is no real immigration process here, and that's by design. The Vatican's purpose is to focus on its religious duties, making it one of the most exclusive places on Earth in terms of residency. For those hoping to move to this sacred city, the path to ascent exists, unless you're ready to dedicate your life to the church. Country 4, Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan might not be the first country that comes to mind when you think of immigration restrictions, but its policies are some of the strictest in the world. This Central Asian nation, rich in natural gas and still heavily influenced by its Soviet past, keeps a tight grip on who is allowed to enter its borders. Immigrants and foreign workers are subject to intense scrutiny, and even short-term visitors must navigate a maze of bureaucracy. Much of this isolation stems from the country's desire to protect its culture and maintain control over its resources. Turkmenistan's government heavily regulates all aspects of life, including the media, making it difficult for outsiders to gain a foothold. Immigration is reserved for those with exceptional skills or political connections. But even then, the process can take years, and the government retains the right to revoke permits at any time. For most, the chances of moving to Turkmenistan are slim. The country's isolationist policies and its suspicion of foreign influence mean that few are granted the opportunity to live and work within its borders. Country 5, Eritrea. Eritrea, a small nation on the Horn of Africa, is one of the most difficult places to immigrate to. Known for its strict military service laws and a government that closely monitors its citizens, Eritrea is not open to foreigners looking to settle. The government requires all citizens to participate in mandatory national service, a policy that has driven many Eritreans to flee the country in search of freedom elsewhere. Immigration into Eritrea is rare, and the process is long and grueling. The government is highly suspicious of outsiders, and even those who manage to enter are closely watched. Eritrea's isolationist policies mean that it is nearly impossible for an ordinary person to move there. For those seeking a new home, Eritrea is a place better known for immigration than immigration. Even those with Eritrean heritage face difficulties. The government has strict rules about repatriation, making it hard for even second or third generation Eritreans to return and settle. It's a country locked in a defensive posture, suspicious of both its neighbors and those from further afield. Country 6, Brunei. Brunei, a tiny yet wealthy nation on the island of Borneo, is famous for its immense oil reserves and the strict enforcement of Sharia law. But what many don't realize is that Brunei is also one of the most exclusive places in the world when it comes to immigration. The government prioritizes its citizens' welfare and aims to preserve the local way of life, which includes maintaining strict control over who can enter and settle in the country. For immigrants, Brunei offers limited opportunities. While there are some foreign workers, primarily in the oil and gas sector, the pathway to permanent residency or citizenship is extremely narrow. Even those who have lived and worked in Brunei for decades often remain as foreign residents without the full rights of citizens. The Sultan and the government carefully regulate the demographics of the nation, making it one of the most difficult countries to immigrate to. For those hoping to settle in Brunei, the odds are stacked against you. Its wealth and unique cultural values have led to a controlled and selective immigration policy that prioritizes preservation over openness, creating a rarefied space that is largely out of reach for newcomers. Country 7, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, a key player in the Middle East and home to vast oil reserves, may seem like an economic paradise for foreigners seeking opportunity, but it's one of the hardest places to call home as an immigrant. The kingdom operates under strict immigration laws that make it incredibly difficult for foreign nationals to gain citizenship or permanent residency, even if they've worked in the country for years. Most foreigners enter Saudi Arabia on temporary work visas, primarily in the oil industry or as domestic workers. However, these visas are tightly controlled and come with numerous restrictions. Workers cannot easily switch jobs or sponsor family members to join them. For those who dream of settling permanently, Saudi Arabia offers no real pathway to citizenship for ordinary immigrants. The Saudi government's focus is on maintaining the cultural and religious fabric of the nation, and immigration is seen as a potential disruptor to that balance. In 2019, Saudi Arabia introduced a premium residency program, which offers some foreign investors and highly skilled professionals the chance to live and work in the kingdom without needing a sponsor. But even this program doesn't offer a path to full citizenship. Saudi Arabia remains a nation with formidable barriers for anyone hoping to make it their permanent home. Country 8, Kuwait. Kuwait, one of the wealthiest countries in the world per capita, relies heavily on foreign workers for its booming oil industry and service sector. Yet, despite the large number of expatriates, Kuwait is one of the most difficult countries to immigrate to if you're hoping for long-term residency or citizenship. The Kuwaiti government imposes strict immigration laws to maintain the native Kuwaiti population's dominance over its substantial foreign workforce. Foreign workers in Kuwait often hold temporary contracts and live in the country for years without ever being able to become permanent residents. Citizenship is particularly elusive. Kuwait rarely grants it to non-natives, even to those who were born and raised in the country. For most foreign workers, there's no option but to leave once their employment contracts end. The government's careful approach to immigration helps preserve the benefits of the welfare state for native Kuwaitis. It's this balance between a thriving economy reliant on foreign labor and a controlled immigration policy that has kept the door to long-term settlement firmly closed for most outsiders. Country 9, Japan. At first glance, Japan may not seem like a country that would have strict immigration controls. With its aging population and shrinking workforce, You might assume Japan would welcome immigrants with open arms, but Japan is one of the most immigration-averse developed nations, with deeply rooted cultural and social reasons behind its restrictive policies. The Japanese government has historically been protective of its homogeneous culture, which has led to very low levels of immigration. Foreign workers can obtain temporary visas, but transitioning to permanent residency or citizenship is a long and complicated process. Even those who have lived in Japan for decades often struggle with cultural barriers and social integration. The government has introduced new programs to attract foreign workers in certain industries, but this has not translated into a more relaxed immigration policy. For those wishing to settle in Japan, the cultural resistance to immigration is palpable. Despite the need for labor, Japan's immigration policies remain among the toughest, with strict requirements and little flexibility for those hoping to make the country their permanent home. Country 10. Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein, one of the smallest and wealthiest nations in Europe, is another country where immigration is tightly controlled. Nestled between Switzerland and Austria, this tiny nation has strict quotas on the number of foreigners who can settle or work there each year. The government carefully monitors immigration to preserve its small population and protect its unique way of life. Liechtenstein has a close relationship with Switzerland, and its immigration laws reflect a desire to maintain sovereignty while also protecting the interests of its citizens. Foreign workers are required to secure permits, and even those who have lived in Liechtenstein for years may find it difficult to obtain permanent residency or citizenship. The quotas on immigration ensure that the country maintains a balance between its native population and the limited number of foreign residents. For those hoping to settle in Liechtenstein, the process is not only selective but also highly competitive. The country's small size means that every new resident is carefully considered, making it one of the most exclusive places in Europe for immigrants. From reclusive regimes to wealthy enclaves, these countries have some of the toughest immigration policies in the world. Whether for political control, cultural preservation, or economic protection, they've closed their doors to all but a select few. In an era where most nations are becoming more connected, these places have chosen a different path, keeping the world at arm's length. As global dynamics shift, will they eventually open up or remain closed off, preserving their unique identities? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. Discovering the Earth will be back with more eye-opening explorations of the world's most intriguing places. See you in the next video.